Rule number one is about protecting your energy because every day you wake up with only so much of it, and the truth is, not everyone should have the right to access it. Think about how quickly you can feel drained when you allow yourself to get caught up in someone else's drama, when you step into an argument that doesn't need to be yours, or when you sit and absorb negativity that someone else is determined to spread. Protecting your energy doesn't mean you cut yourself off from the world. It means you build boundaries that keep you from giving too much of yourself to people or situations that have no return. Your time and attention are the most valuable things you own, and when you stop letting just anyone have them, you start noticing how much lighter you feel, how much calmer you respond, and how much more space you have for the things and people who matter most. People who thrive on conflict will always try to invite you into their chaos, but protecting your energy means learning how to leave the invitation unopened. Not every phone call needs to be answered, not every message deserves a response, and not every insult is worth your breath. The moment you start recognizing that your peace is worth more than winning an argument, you begin to walk differently. You start carrying yourself with the understanding that silence can speak louder than shouting, that walking away can be stronger than fighting back, and that letting go can actually mean gaining more. Your energy is like a battery, and if you give it to everyone who asks for it, you'll have nothing left to power your own life. Protecting your energy also means being selective with who you spend time with. Some people fill you up while others slowly empty you without you even realizing it. Pay attention to how you feel after being around certain people. Do you feel inspired, calm, motivated, or do you feel exhausted, irritated, and on edge? The answer tells you everything you need to know. When you surround yourself with people who respect your boundaries, your energy feels preserved and protected. But when you continue to allow people who constantly take without giving, your energy becomes scattered and weak. Protecting yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. This rule doesn't only apply to people, it applies to what you consume daily. The conversations you listen to, the content you scroll through, the stories you repeat to yourself in your head, they all play a part in whether your energy is preserved or wasted. If you wake up and the first thing you do is flood your mind with negativity, comparison, and noise, you start your day drained before you even move. But if you begin with things that feed your spirit, things that challenge you in a positive way, and things that remind you of your worth, you'll find yourself unshaken even when negativity tries to knock at your door. The power of protecting your energy also comes from knowing when to say no. So many people feel guilty about saying no because they don't want to let others down. But the truth is, every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to something that could grow you. Protecting your energy means learning that no is a complete sentence, that you don't owe an explanation for choosing yourself, and that the people who truly respect you will understand your boundaries. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes, and soon you stop feeling the need to justify why your peace matters. It's also important to understand that protecting your energy doesn't mean avoiding challenges or discomfort, because growth still requires effort and sometimes struggle. The difference is you're choosing which challenges are worth your energy and which ones aren't. You're learning that protecting your energy is about directing it toward what builds you instead of what breaks you. When you spend your energy wisely, you'll discover you have more clarity, more patience, and more strength to deal with the real battles of life. It becomes easier to filter what deserves your response and what doesn't. And that filter is what keeps you unbothered. When you truly start protecting your energy, you stop trying to fix everyone. You stop trying to control what isn't yours, and you stop wasting yourself on things that don't grow you. You begin to see that peace is something you choose, not something someone else hands you. You begin to understand that you can be in the middle of chaos and still feel centered because your boundaries act as a shield. You learn that the more you protect your energy, the less anyone else can disturb it. And that is when you discover the real strength of being unbothered. Rule number 2 is about stopping the habit of constantly explaining yourself to people who are already committed to misunderstanding you. Because no matter how much detail you give or how patiently you lay it out, there are some people who simply don't want to understand. They want control, they want to twist your words, they want to keep you defending yourself until you're drained and they're satisfied. When you realize this, you begin to see how many hours of your life have been spent in arguments that went nowhere, in conversations that ended exactly where they began, and in explanations that only opened the door to more accusations. The truth is, you don't owe endless explanations for your choices, your boundaries, or your peace. You can say something once with clarity and let the silence after that carry more weight than repeating yourself over and over. When you stop over-explaining, you're really taking back your power, because over-explaining is often a way of asking for permission to exist as you are. You say yes, but then feel the need to justify why. You say no, but then add 10 reasons so the other person won't be upset. You make a decision, but then list every excuse so they don't think badly of you. That cycle keeps you trapped in other people's opinions instead of standing firmly in your own truth. Protecting your peace here means understanding that your boundaries are not up for negotiation, and your life doesn't need to be put on trial every time someone disagrees with you. There will always be people who claim they didn't understand what you meant, even though you were clear. There will always be people who ask why, not because they truly want to know, but because they're looking for an opening to criticize or control. The sooner you recognize the difference between curiosity and manipulation, the faster you learn when to stop talking. Explanations are valuable when someone is genuinely seeking clarity, but when someone has already decided who you are or what your intentions were, no amount of words will change that. Silence becomes your shield, and standing in your choice without justification becomes your strength. Think about how freeing it feels to answer something simply and leave it at that. When someone asks you to do something you don't want to do, you can say no and stop there. When someone questions why you handled a situation the way you did, you can give a short response and move forward. The moment you stop rehearsing paragraphs of explanations to satisfy others, you begin to notice how much energy you save. You realize that the people who truly respect you don't demand lengthy justifications, and the ones who do are often the ones you don't need to keep proving yourself to anyway. Over-explaining can also come from a place of fear of being judged, fear of being disliked, fear of conflict. But here's the truth. You can explain yourself perfectly, and someone will still judge you. You can bend over backwards to be understood, and someone will still mislabel you. Once you understand that, you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of trying to please everyone. Being unbothered isn't about never caring what others think. It's about caring less about the opinions of those who have no real stake in your life. When you stop feeding explanations to people who thrive on them, you starve the conflict they're trying to create. This rule also teaches you the power of brevity. Short, clear communication shows confidence, while long, overdrawn justifications often reveal insecurity. When you trust yourself, you don't feel the need to keep selling your reasons to others. You know who you are, you know why you made your decision, and that's enough. The moment you internalize this, you become harder to shake. You become someone who doesn't get dragged into circles of endless talk, because you understand that clarity once is stronger than explanation 10 times. When you stop explaining yourself to people who don't want to understand you, you gain a level of calm that no one can take away. You begin to see that your peace is worth more than their approval, and your truth is strong enough to stand without their validation. You learn that silence is not weakness but wisdom, that walking away from the need to be understood is actually walking closer to your own freedom. You realize that people will talk, people will assume, people will twist, but none of that requires you to hand over your energy in the form of endless explanations. That is how you remain unbothered. Rule number 3 is about choosing your response instead of letting someone else's reaction dictate how you show up. Because the truth is, people will always test you, provoke you, or try to push your buttons just to see how much control they can have. When you let yourself get pulled into their emotions, you hand them the steering wheel of your peace. But when you pause and choose your response carefully, you stay in charge. Life will always throw you people who know how to trigger anger, frustration, or insecurity, but your calm is your control panel. The ability to pause, breathe, and decide how you want to respond is what separates being unbothered from being reactive. It's not about being perfect or never feeling emotions. It's about refusing to give someone else the power to decide what your emotions should look like in that moment. Think about how many arguments spiral because one reaction fuels another, and suddenly what started as a small disagreement becomes an explosion. The reason it grows is because no one stopped to choose a response. They just mirrored back the same energy they were given. When you learn to break that pattern, you're no longer trapped in cycles of conflict. You don't have to answer every insult with a comeback. You don't have to defend yourself against every petty remark. You don't have to prove yourself in the heat of the moment. Sometimes the strongest response is a calm tone, steady eye contact, and a short acknowledgement that shows you're present without being pulled under. This not only protects your energy, but also disarms the person trying to provoke you because they can't control what they can't shake. Choosing your response also means being intentional with your words because words are powerful and once spoken, they can't be taken back. A heated response can burn bridges you never meant to destroy, but a measured one can keep the door open while still protecting your boundary. It's about realizing that not every reaction deserves your full fire, because when you give someone an explosive reaction, you're giving them exactly what they wanted. People who thrive on chaos feed off that energy, and the best way to keep your peace is to stop supplying it. Instead of matching someone's anger, you can choose composure. Instead of defending every accusation, you can choose silence. Instead of trying to win the moment, you can choose to win your peace. There's a deep strength in knowing you could react, but choosing not to. That's what makes people notice. That's what shifts the dynamic in any conversation. It's not weakness to stay calm, it's wisdom. And it shows a level of control that others often can't understand. When you respond with calm, you're showing that your emotions are not up for grabs, that your peace isn't for sale, and that you're not willing to let someone else's chaos set the tone for your life. This isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about expressing them on your own terms, in your own timing, and in a way that doesn't cost you peace later. It's also about recognizing that every reaction has a cost. When you explode in anger, you carry that tension long after the moment has passed. When you respond with calm, you walk away lighter, knowing you didn't hand your power to someone else. This shift allows you to stand taller, to speak with more clarity, and to see that being unbothered isn't passive. It's active control over how you move through the world. People will respect it even if they don't admit it, because calm in the face of provocation is something most people struggle to maintain. Choosing your response isn't always easy because your instinct will be to match the energy given to you. But the more you practice pausing, breathing, and making intentional choices, the more natural it becomes. Over time, people stop seeing you as someone they can rattle because your steadiness makes their attempts at chaos fall flat. You start noticing how much lighter your days feel when you're not constantly dragged into reactions, how much clarity you gain when your emotions aren't tangled with theirs, and how much strength you carry when you know you can't be baited. That's when you realize that true power is not in reacting quickly, but in responding wisely. When you master this rule, you walk through situations with a calm that can't be bought, a strength that can't be shaken, and a presence that others can't ignore. You stop being a puppet to other people's emotions and instead become the one setting the tone. You learn that in every heated moment you have a choice to match their reaction or to protect your peace with a controlled response. And the more you choose peace, the more unbothered you become. Rule number 4 is about separating your worth from other people's opinions, because the truth is, no matter what you do, someone will always have something to say about it. If you succeed, they'll say you got lucky. If you fail, they'll say they saw it coming. And if you stand in the middle trying to please everyone, you'll still be criticized for not doing enough. The mistake most people make is believing that someone else's view of them is a reflection of their value, when in reality, it's just a reflection of the lens that person is looking through. When you allow their words to dictate how you see yourself, you hand over your confidence, your peace, and your freedom to people who don't deserve that much power. The moment you decide that your worth isn't tied to their approval, you begin to walk differently. You begin to carry yourself in a way that can't be touched. And you begin to understand that being unbothered comes from knowing exactly who you are, regardless of what anyone else says. When people throw labels at you, what they're really doing is projecting their own insecurities, their own fears, and their own disappointments onto you. They'll call you arrogant when you're confident. They'll call you selfish when you set boundaries. They'll call you weak when you choose peace over conflict. None of those words define you unless you pick them up and wear them. Once you realize that opinions are just that, opinions, not facts, you stop giving them the weight of truth. You don't have to defend yourself against every label, because defending yourself often gives the label more life. Instead, you remind yourself quietly that their perspective has no power to rewrite your worth. You are who you are before they spoke, and you'll remain who you are long after their words fade. It's easy to forget that everyone views you through the filter of their own experiences, and those filters can distort the image. Someone who has been hurt may see kindness as manipulation. Someone who is insecure may see confidence as arrogance. Someone who fears rejection may see independence as coldness. The way they see you is more about them than it is about you. And when you finally understand that, you stop carrying unnecessary weight. You no longer feel the need to adjust yourself to fit into their narrow frame, because their frame was never designed to hold your whole truth in the first place. This is where freedom begins. When you let go of the idea that you need to be understood, liked, or validated by everyone you meet. Separating your worth from opinions also means building an inner foundation that can't be shaken by outside noise. If you rely on compliments to feel good, then insults will destroy you. But when your confidence comes from within, both compliments and insults lose their control. You learn to appreciate kind words without depending on them, and you learn to dismiss harsh words without absorbing them. That balance makes you steady, because you're no longer on a roller coaster of emotions based on what others say. Instead, you're grounded, unbothered, and secure in the truth you've built about yourself. That inner stability allows you to walk into any room knowing you don't need to shrink or inflate, you just need to be. One of the most powerful realizations is that you don't have to prove your worth to anyone. The constant need to prove yourself is exhausting, because it keeps you performing for an audience that may never clap. People can clap for you today and boo you tomorrow. So tying your value to their reaction is a losing game. When you stop performing for approval, you start living for purpose. You stop chasing validation and instead focus on alignment with who you truly are. That shift not only protects your peace, it also attracts the right people. Those who respect you without needing you to constantly earn their respect through endless explanations or achievements. This rule also helps you filter criticism in a healthier way. Instead of letting every negative word cut into your identity, you start asking yourself if there's truth in it that can help you grow. And if not, you let it go. Constructive feedback is useful, but destructive opinions are not your responsibility to carry. When you treat opinions like mail, you sort through what's useful and throw away what isn't. And that's how you prevent yourself from being buried under the weight of other people's voices. Not every package delivered to your doorstep belongs inside your home, and not every opinion delivered to your ears belongs inside your head. When you truly separate your worth from their opinion, you discover a freedom that feels untouchable. You no longer bend to fit into someone else's definition. You no longer chase after approval that was never yours to earn. And you no longer carry labels that were never meant for you. You see opinions for what they are, temporary noise, and you see your worth for what it is, permanent truth. That's the kind of mindset that makes you unbothered, because no matter what is said around you or about you, you know that none of it decides who you are or what you're worth. Rule number 5 is about practicing the power of pause, because sometimes the strongest move you can make is no move at all. When people try to provoke you, when situations rise in tension, when emotions hit a boiling point, your instinct may be to react immediately, but that reaction often costs you more than you realize. The pause is where you regain your balance. It's where you separate impulse from intention, and it's where you protect your peace from being stolen in the heat of the moment. A pause doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise enough to let silence do what anger can't. That space you create in the pause gives you perspective, it gives you clarity, and it shows the other person that your emotions are not theirs to control. There's a certain power in letting time handle what your words don't need to. Arguments lose steam when they're not constantly fueled. Tension often deflates when it's not met with equal force, and insults fall flat when they're not given the reaction they were fishing for. The pause is not avoidance, it's strategy. It's choosing to step back long enough to respond on your own terms instead of being dragged into someone else's chaos. In that pause, you ask yourself, does this situation deserve my energy, or is it better left unanswered? Does this comment actually require my defense, or is my silence already the answer? Those questions shift your focus from reacting emotionally to responding intentionally, and that shift is what keeps you unbothered. The pause also teaches patience because not everything needs to be addressed right away. Some problems untangle themselves when you give them space, and some conflicts resolve themselves when you stop feeding them attention. Pausing allows emotions to settle, and when emotions settle, perspective grows. What felt urgent in the heat of the moment often looks smaller after time has cooled it down. That's the gift of the pause. It protects you from making decisions or saying words that would have been driven by temporary emotions but would have carried permanent consequences. By pausing, you give yourself the ability to step back, think clearly, and choose a path that aligns with your peace instead of breaking it. The power of pause isn't only for conflict, it's also for daily life. Pausing before replying to a message, before making a commitment, before saying yes to something that doesn't align with you, all of that keeps your energy protected. The pause creates space for choice, and choice is where your freedom lies. People often regret the moments they rushed into without thought, but very few regret the moments they took time to consider. Practicing pause is practicing control, and the more you apply it, the more you realize you don't have to live at the speed of someone else's urgency. Your time and peace are yours, and they deserve protection through patience. Pausing also communicates strength to others. When you don't react immediately, people notice. They see that you're not easily provoked, that you're not quick to anger, that you're not desperate to prove yourself in every moment. That kind of composure earns respect, even from those who may not like you. Silence can be unsettling to people who expect chaos in return, and the more you master the art of pausing, the harder it becomes for others to control you. That's because the pause removes their power. They can shout, they can criticize, they can attempt to rattle you, but if you don't respond immediately, they lose the control they were trying to gain. There's also healing in the pause because it gives you time to check in with yourself. When you stop to breathe, you recognize what you're actually feeling, and when you recognize it, you can handle it without projecting it onto others. Sometimes what feels like anger is really exhaustion. Sometimes what feels like frustration is really fear. And sometimes what feels like conflict is just a reflection of stress. Pausing helps you separate those emotions so you don't pour them into a situation where they don't belong. That awareness not only protects your peace, but also deepens your understanding of yourself, making you stronger and steadier in every interaction. When you live by the power of pause, you begin to notice how much lighter life feels. You're no longer rushing into reactions. You're no longer wasting energy on unnecessary conflicts. And you're no longer handing over your peace to every person who tries to provoke you. Instead, you create space, you take your time, and you move on your own terms. That pause becomes your shield, your reset button, and your greatest tool for staying calm in a world that constantly pushes for chaos. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes until eventually the pause isn't something you try to remember. It's simply the way you move, and it's what makes you unbothered.